Welcome back, and joining us on the show now is Agri Economist, Mr. Devinder Sharma. Mr. Sharma, hi, thank you so much for joining in. First, your sense on the kind of kharif numbers that we seem to be getting. 10% sowing more than last year. Of course, there's a disparity on what is getting more sown. We've clearly seen some decline in soybean, some decline in tur as well. This is where we did not get MSP for many of those farmers. But what is your overall sense?
Well, I think, first of all, it looks very exciting when we hear the 10% increase. But when we look at the numbers, it doesn't give us any encouragement. First of all, the area which has increased is that of wheat, a little bit, I would say. And then, of course, there's a decline in oil seeds and pulses, which is very crucial because in the last 1 year, we have imported about 46,000 crores worth of pulses. So the farmers are not finding any excitement in growing pulses anymore. And also the area under oilseeds has shrunk. The reason you spelled it out clearly that soybean farmers are not getting the right prices. So why should they go in for enhanced sowing this particular year? So I guess it is a mixed bag, and I think it should be very clear and obvious that the price policy has to change to encourage farmers to bring more area under pulses and oilseed, which is the requirement today.
Mr. Sharma, when you say the price policy has to change, what do you really mean with that? Because the MSP increase is something that the government has been pushing on in sense of price increase for farmers.
Yeah, but if you see the price increase happens at a time when the imports are coming in. So if the cheaper imports are coming in, you will see that the prices get depressed in the market, as a result of which farmers don't get the right price. Now, look at soybean, for instance. Against the MSP, which is higher, the farmers are getting about 4,300 to 4,600 per quintal. And so therefore, there is no excitement for them to go or shift towards soybean. The area under pulses has also decreased because the shift is now towards wheat, simply because there is an assured price there. So I think the government has to formulate a policy. Two things must be assured. One, of course, the right kind of price. And second, the imports are not coming at a time when the harvest begins. And that is something which we have to be very careful, because pulses is a victim of that kind of a price folly.
Mr. Sharma, there is just so much conversation around GM right now. While while a lot of people believe that it can increase productivity by 15 to 20%, you're anyways importing a lot of that. But the kind of resistance that we've seen on GM also has been on the higher side.
I think, let me be very clear, there is no increase in productivity anywhere in GM crops. Let me be very clear on that. And I think this feeling or impression has been given by the industry, and I include the GM industry in that. The classical case is that of cotton. We had BT cotton in India. We have seen the collapse of BT cotton recently, and nobody has raised a question. And even prior to that, when the increase happened in the initial years, when the introduction happened in India, the GM crops introduction happened in India, that was not because of any advantage that the GM offered. It was because of other factors like irrigation and fertilizer increase, and this has been demonstrated in an excellent paper published in the very important magazine called Nature by a former director of the Cotton Institute in India, and along with an economist, sociologist in America. Now, that is a very important paper which tells us that the increase was not because of GM seeds, as was given or we were given to understand. So I think it should be very clear, GM is not the answer for our increasing productivity, it is the price. Let us provide a higher price to farmers, and you will see they raise the productivity. For instance, the case of pulses. If pulses prices were higher, there is no reason why Indian farmers wouldn't have taken that offer. The result is that we have not been able to provide the right kind of prices, so farmers don't see any incentive there. So it should be clear to all of us, it is not GM. And GM, of course, has health concerns, as we all know. We are not a GM nation. So why should we take that line that we need to import GM maize or GM soya? No, we don't need to do that. It will also impact our exports of soya meal, because globally there is a demand for non-GM soya meal, and that India is a country which they are looking up to. Why do we want to lose that option also, or the advantage also? So I think it is very clear we don't need GM, we need healthy crops, and the productivity increase can happen without GM. GM was just an illusion that has been created in this country.
I want to come back onto the cheaper import part of this. And while we've seen that happen in edible oils, we've seen that happen in pulses. I was reading a latest report, Mr. Sharma, and that tells us that even cotton imports, now India does seem like a net importer, because from 15 to 17 million bales last year, or rather this year, it looks like we'll be importing 40 lakh bales rather. So from being a second largest producer, and even with an 11% import duty, it does feel like the cotton imports are cheaper into India.
You're very right. And I think cotton is a classic example where the GM experiment has gone wrong. The GM bullet that we all talked about has bitten the dust. It happened in China first. It is happening in India now. In the last 2 years, if you have seen, the area under cotton in Punjab, Haryana, and Rajasthan is at the lowest ever. And that tells you that, the farmers' love affair with cotton has gone. And that has gone for two reasons. One, of course, is that the GM crops varieties failed and failed miserably. And the second part is that we are not able to give the right kind of price to cotton farmers. So both the things, I think, should be an eye-opener for all of us, that for boosting the productivity or production within the country, we need to ensure that there is an adequate and assured price, A, and B, we do not go for fall for such fallacious kind of argument which say GM is the answer. GM has not been the answer anywhere, including China, which initially had shown remarkable productivity, but then everything crashed as far as the GM crops were concerned in China. So what is happened in India is a repeat of that same performance, and I think that should be clear that GM is not the future ahead.
Well, thank you so much, Mr. Sharma, as well as Manisha, for joining us and giving us an insight into this very interesting as well as important topic. Well, we'll now slip into a short break. We'll get you more on the markets and focus on Dixon Technologies on the other side. Stay tuned.